The Fishing Paper Show is proudly brought to you by United Fisheries, bringing fresh fish to your plate.
Well, it's that time of the season where people are starting to think salmon, and we have Lindsay Barnes from Hamill's, the specialist shop here in Canterbury, talking salmon. What's happening at this time of the season? It's pretty early yet, isn't it?
Yeah, early season. You generally tend to find that salmon fishermen are tending to fish either the surf or the lower reaches where the salmon are starting to sort of congregate before they run the river. So you're going to have guys fishing long surf rods, distance casting on these sort of reels here. They're designed to cast distance, high speed ratios, and these two here. These are the more modern reels now, and these are the old 7000s. They've been around a long time. Very good, very reliable reels. These sort of tices you'll be using, and they'll weight forward 68 grams roundabout, which is 2.5 ounce.
So are we needing different gear for different situations? So we don't have a one-piece cover all? Not
necessarily, no. There's very few reels that'll do both. Probably these reels here you can use in the gut, but they're sort of a bit heavy. Most guys, if you're fishing in the gut, will use these smaller, lighter weight reels, and they're fishing with zeddies, that sort of thing.
So you'd relate to that, the gut, Steve?
The gut?
The gut. Fishing. We have a chocolate fish for you later. Keep it quiet. So when you're talking about the gut, what are we talking about? Obviously not...
The gut is probably the last 300-400 metres of the river where it flows into the sea, where the salmon come in straight from the sea into the gut. That's the narrow part. Yeah. Above that you get up into the more estuary part of it and up into the upper reaches of the river, and that's more upriver fishing. So gut fishing is more around that sort of 400 metre mark of where the fish just come in from the sea into that gut area. So,
okay, so when the salmon are coming in, how long do they hold in this particular area?
It sort of depends really. Sometimes they'll come in and out on the tide depending on the river. Like if you go, say, the Waimak, they might spend up to 3 or 4 weeks if the river's low and clear. They'll come in, go out on the tide until there's a fresh, and then those fish will run the river and you'll fish better upriver. So, and a bit like that in the surf too. The surf can fish a lot better if the river's low and clear, because the fish won't come into the river if it's low. They know that, so they can't get up to the headwaters. So they'll congregate there and they'll build up in the surf, and you can have some phenomenal fishing in the surf with those conditions. And the same can be said if there's been a lot of fish around and you get a big fresh, one side of the surf will be better because there'll be a clear patch and the fish will congregate into there, and you can really hammer them in the surf and have some good days.
Now tell me, with these things, these tices that we're throwing at them, the salmon when they're on the run, they don't actually feed?
No, basically once they sort of enter that sort of freshwater area, they more or less, they've got spawning on their mind, they're not feeding, so generally they'll snap out of it just out of aggression. It gets in their face, they'll snap at it, they'll chase it. It's just their instinct to sort of to grab it.
All right, very briefly, these look like something totally new. We'll cover these in later episodes, but what are these?
These are big spey reels. So as a shop we're trying to get into two-handed spey casting, which is a completely new way of fishing in New Zealand for salmon. Very popular overseas, like in England, and that the Spey River is the main river where they catch the Atlantic salmon, and it's very effective over there, so we feel as a shop that it's a good way to go.
All right, and talking of other techniques now, I said it's salmon, salmon, salmon. Well, here are some salmons with stripes on. Kingfish abound in the waters about the top of the south, from Banks Peninsula, Muttonau, the Marlborough Sounds and down the coast. Modern technology and radical new techniques have brought these scrappy fighters within reach of the average angler. The deep, turbulent waters of D'Urville Island are proving great hunting grounds for kingfish anglers.
One of the secrets to catching kingfish here in the passage is that they operate in a very tight water column. They occupy the water column vertically, so the area that you're fishing can be quite small. And what we're doing here is finding the kingfish, giving them a little bit of lead, and then drifting back over them. So it's a case of once you find them, work the ground and repeat it time and time again, and you get onto the kingfish.
Time is spent cruising until the fish are located on the sounder. Kingfish show up above baitfish, which can be found along the faces of steep drop-offs where current converges. Once dropped to the bottom, the jig is wound up through the water column using a series of lift and drop motions. While it looks naughty, mechanical jigging is a very effective technique using long metal jigs.
There we go.
Once hooked into a big kingy, it soon becomes a test of your stamina.
dangerous. You can see by the way that that fish really dealt to it. They're big nuggety street fighters of the underwater world. And that really tells you that without good gear, you're wasting your time. Around it. Just look at the power of that fish, he's just about got me over the side. You can just feel the sheer weight of the fish through the line and the rod. These parabolic rods take some fair punishing. They've been right through to the butt. So it means that you can get plenty of leverage on the fish.
Once hooked into a big kingy, it soon becomes a test of your stamina.
Okay, this fish got a little bit of a rip in him, so we're going to sacrifice him. He's going to be our fish of the day. We try and limit our catch up here because it's a new fishery, and it will take a lot of pressure if people kill everything they catch. So we limit ourselves to one fish per person if we need them. This one's going on the table. So we'll just dispatch him.
Kill fish quickly and humanely by piercing the brain with a sharp instrument or icky.
It's a pretty good average sized fish here in Stevens Passage. Awesome fun. But like I said before, if you haven't got good tackle, those guys are going to take you to the cleaners every time.
This week we're going to take a look at beam angles. As our sound wave travels through the water, it doesn't go down straight, it in fact goes down in a cone shape. Using this torch as an example, we'll see that if I hold it against the wall, the circle of light is fairly small. But as I start to pull it back, and we'll liken this to going into deeper water, the diameter of our circle gets larger. And the higher the frequency, the narrower our beam. So we can go from a beam that looks like this to this. The rough standard of transducer beam angles on 600 watts is 15 degrees on high frequency and 45 degrees on low. We can achieve narrower beam angles by increasing the power of our transducer, and if we go to a 1 kilowatt, we can bring these angles down to 15 degrees on low frequency and 5 degrees on high. We can see how these narrower beams really affect the amount of seabed we see at different depths. At 150 metres we can cut the diameter of our footprint down from 39 metres to 13 by going from 600 watts to 1 kilowatt. This becomes very important when looking for fish on the bottom, and this is due to an effect called target masking. You'll see that the seabed isn't quite flat, as the rocks come up on one side. The way a sounder works, as soon as it receives an echo from the seabed, it will tell us that's the depth. If we had a slightly wider beam in this picture, we would in fact be told the depth to the rocks, and everything else beneath it would be missed. We can see this effect clearer in this image. Here we can see that we wouldn't see the fish because they're hiding underneath the rock. So the narrower your beam, the smaller the area you're looking at, and the bed and bottom definition you will have, making it easier to find and target those bottom feeders such as cod and groper.